Yep, we're live. Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Ariel Bar Tzadok here from the Kosher Torah School. We are in our weekly classes here in the Sefer Etz Hayim, Shar Hamishim. This is our fifth lesson in this series. And in this section, we're in chapter 2. We're going to be discussing an interesting topic, something that in Kabbalah speak, we try to make things relevant, as we always try to do. Something called the Klipah Nogah. Klipah Nogah would be, if you would, how would we define it? I guess as a glittering shell. Nice word, nice term, but like with all other Kabbalistic terminologies, many people subject it to mythology as opposed to understanding realistically what it means. People don't like usually to ascribe words like psychology to Kabbalah and Torah, but in all due respect, we're talking about the nature of our human reality, the nature of the soul. Well, modern speak, that's what we call it, psychology. Of course, the difference between, I guess, a Torah-based psychology and a secular-based one is the concept of the parameters of the human mind. The human mind is that which we call, religious speak, your soul, your neshama. Well, that which is you, your soul, your neshama, is needless to say, by our understanding, not limited to the confines of the organic brain. We don't look at human consciousness just to be organically based. In other words, just physically associated with the body and no more. In that context, even though we're going to say that we have a soul, all people, when you talk about language like that, think of it from a very Western point of view, that a soul is this isolated, like, I don't know, little something, maybe a ball of energy or something, locked inside your body like in a prison, and you're separate from all these others. Nothing could be further from the truth. All souls, this is actually a teaching in the Gemara, where it says, Kol Yisrael aruvin ze leze. All Israel, or actually, if you will, all human souls, are interconnected one with another. All life is connected with one another. Essentially, with the development of consciousness, one can become aware of, sensitive of the awareness in the life force of pretty much anything everywhere. I once heard it referred to in a novel that there was one character who was a popular musician, singer, and he went out into the field and he started singing to the trees, to the flowers, to nature, and he was stunned when he could hear nature, the flowers and the trees, singing back to him. And you might say, well, it's all in a fantasy, it's all in a novel, and no, it's not. You see, this is a point that's made right here in our text. We're going to be speaking about the Nefesh level of soul, and we're going to say that there's a Nefesh Domem, an inanimate soul, a vegetable soul, an animal soul, and a human soul. But you got to place focus not so much on the inanimate, vegetable, or animal side of it, but on the word soul, nefesh. Nefesh does mean a life force energy, but at the same time recognize that a life force energy has a conscience to it, an awareness to it, a self-awareness to it. It is aware of itself. It is aware of most likely God. And therefore, we have the ability to interact with such, if you will, consciousness. So therefore, by recognizing that at a level, all life, all, if you will, mind, all consciousness, all nefesh is interrelated with one another, enables us to understand the underlying concept of how one is able to commune with nature and therefore be in touch with the greater reality of the world around us. Numerous examples of this nature, exist all throughout the Torah, all throughout our Judaic experience. There are forces in this world, conscious, aware, powerful. We can refer to them as good, or we can refer to them as evil. We can refer to them as strong, we can refer to them as weak, healthy, sick, right, wrong, whatever. We must recognize, this is a point that Carl Jung makes in psychology, because when we're talking about, again, nefesh being real, when we embrace any kind of a force in this world. In our text, it's referred to by the four elements of Arma: fire, air, water, earth. They're associated with these all types of archetypes, meaning symbolic imagery. And these forces, natural forces as they are, but we understand them to be real, alive, sentient. And all entities in the world are associated with and emanate from one of these sources. When we choose to archetypally embrace any one of these sources, be it by the way we dress, by the way we act, by the way we feel, we are drawing to ourselves almost magnetically a greater attachment to something beyond ourselves. This is what Carl Jung would refer to as being possessed by an archetype. One of the big ones that you'll see, believe it or not, exists as a what should I call it? A duplication, a make-believe expression of holiness. There is an actual mental illness called Jerusalem syndrome, where in which many people from Western religions, obviously, go to Jerusalem and all of a sudden feel like they are becoming a prophet of God. And they'll start wearing whatever robes. They'll start thinking that God is talking to them, etc. You got to ask, what's going on? Why is this only in Jerusalem? How come this is not happening in Hoboken, New Jersey? The answer is because you have so much of a mindset. And when you draw into this mindset magnetically, in essence, it possesses your mind. So this is why in our Torah tradition, we're very, very careful with what we do, how we do it. And it'll help you understand why, for example, in the ultra-Orthodox modern world today, why the rabbis are so emphatic to try to impose a rigid physical external structure, how to dress, how to look, etc. Because they're trying to create an archetype, the power of which can actually possess somebody and give them more of a momentum and a push forward into the direction, as opposed to just books and academic influence alone. And it works. So therefore, when we talk about, as we're going to right now, the powers of the four foundations, that which we call the Klipah Nogah, we're dealing with an energy which is powerful, which is real. And when you open yourself up to anything, you magnetically will draw it to you. And you will be possessed by an archetype. And it, again, you see it expressed in the clothing that we wear, the way that we act, and everything else. Look at the way certain people dress. Why do they dress in a certain way? Because they're identifying with a certain, in quote, lifestyle, a character, or an idea or an impression. Many of you might have seen the famous movie, it's slipping my mind here, The Matrix, there you go, with Keanu Reeves playing the character called Neo. And in that movie, he wore the long black, almost like duster coat. And now you see people wanting to wear this duster coat because they want to look like Neo and have the kind of ideas and impressions that they're imitating their character. You'll see this with some people who want to wear glasses similar to the Harry Potter character. There are some people who like to wear robes to make them look like a Jedi Knight. Or a more realistic example, in Israel, you have many of the rabbis who are Moroccan in origin. And in Morocco, great rabbis like Rabbi Abu Hatzera, they wore the old traditional jalabia, long white robe with a big hood. And you'll see a number of the rabbis, a number of the people in Israel today wearing jalabia. And people say, it's a holy garment. If these holy great rabbis are wearing it, I want to wear one because it'll make me holy just like them. Dramatic pause here for you to think. Well, go to Morocco, and you'll find that the reason why Moroccans, or I should say the Moroccan rabbi Kabbalists wore a jalabia is because a jalabia in Morocco was kind of like a pair of Levi jeans here in the United States. In other words, everybody wears one. It has nothing to do with being holy, being a rabbi, being Jewish, being a Kabbalist, or anything of the kind. It's a cultural phenomenon. And as such, people identify the cultural expression within, or let me rephrase that, outside of the cultural norm. And this is where, again, archetypes possess the mind, and the Nefesh soul takes over. And that's why part of the meditative process is to, again, cultivate inner awareness and consciousness of your own self, to free your mind of these types of influences. The influences of what we're about to read and refer to as the Nefesh Behemit, the Nefesh Simchonit, and the Nefesh Domen. All right? Or in other words, lower levels of consciousness, which are responsible for our human identifications with all these kinds of things, which have really nothing to do with anything other than what is perceived in the mind of the individual. Now, this gets really deep, because you see that this kind of archetypal thinking imbues people not only the way that they think and the way they act and the way that they dress and the way that they feel. It will imbue their dreams. It will influence their meditations. It will actually color the nature of their archetypes, or the imagery that they'll see in their meditative pursuits. So part of what we call peeling away the klipot, or getting to the essence of things, requires of us to be able to become aware of, and therefore separate these elements and sections out of us. And if you cannot do that, then again, using the Jungian term, you are possessed by an archetype. Or, if you really want to get into Kabbalah speak, you're possessed by a dibuk, a dibuk. Now, a dibuk, some people say you're possessed by a demon. Well, a dibuk is not a demon. A dibuk can be an earthbound soul, but really what it is an energy field created by the own individual mind, which has the power to possess that mind and literally skewer all of perception. These are these lower levels of soul of what we're about to introduce right now. So, branding. You know, take a look at modern advertisement. Modern advertisement uses all kinds of imagery to literally manipulate and persuade individuals to believe all kinds of things. And in that respect, they're actually using many of the techniques that have been always known by, for example, groups and masters of the occult. The occult, whenever they place psychic attacks on individuals, seek to get an individual in touch with a specific archetype or afraid of specific things, and to manipulate people at the subconscious level to bless them or curse them, as the case may be. And indeed, this is what happens. There's only one way beyond all of that, and that, of course, is to cultivate the highest level of human consciousness. And without that, we become subject to lower levels of consciousness. So with that introduction, let me turn now into chapter 2 of our text. And we're going to read about something called the malavush, or the garments of this Klipah Nogah. Nimsaki arba yesodot nikraim Nefesh Behemit. The four foundational souls are together called the animal soul. The fire, the water, the fire, the air, the water, and the earth. Each of these forms of matter, again, have specific symbolic representations to us, and the symbolic representations refer to personality attributes. You think of fire. Well, when you think of fire, you're normally not thinking of relaxation and calm. That you might associate with water. Fire, you're thinking power, maybe anger, etc., and so on. So when people are associating with certain types of elements or attributes, they are drawing into themselves real forces, which, unless they're careful, will possess them and motivate them to do all kinds of things. You know, perfect example. All right, take a look at religious extremism today. Now, I'm not going to mention anything in the Jewish context. Let's go really extreme to what's going on to what we today call Islamic fundamentalism. Right? They're the ones going out chopping people's heads off and the like. And in all due respect, 1,000 years ago, it was the Christians doing it. And 1,000 years before that, it was the Jews doing it. So let's put everything into a context. What possessed everybody to do all this stuff? Because in their mindset, at a group level, they, the individuals thereof, became possessed with an idea and a concept which completely disassociates them with the reality of the circumstance. And they're living under the possession of, the influence of an archetype. And this is exactly what happened in the days of the Second Temple, which led the zealots to act in such literally insane ways, which led to a Holocaust. It led to the Christians acting in the most depraved ways, which led to the Crusades and the depravities that happened there. Same thing is happening now. All psychological archetypes of possessions of the mind. And there's only one way around that, developing higher consciousness to see through it. This is the 4 foundational elements of this animal soul. And he says here that they are kifulim. They're doubled over. You have 4 from the side of good and 4 from the side of bad. The 4 misitra de tov shochen alehem albush ketonet or. The 4 from the side of good, they are cloaked in what's called here garments of light, using the Hebrew word aleph vav resh for light. But that of the Klipah Nogah, which is the good side, that's light. But the 4 foundations of bad, they are cloaked in what's called the garment of skin, or with an ayin as opposed to an aleph. Mashchad Haviyah, as it says in the Zohar, right? The side of evil. Lo zachab mashchad Haviyah dechlil arabi sodin v'chulei. So, all the forces that exist in the natural elements can draw us towards something decent and positive, or something indecent and negative. What's the difference? Human behavior and character. Because if you think about it, anything and everything that we do is relatively natural. But the higher we get in human consciousness, the more detached we become from the normal realities of the natural order. And then the mind, if it turns to the, if you will, the dark or whatever, it can become depraved. What does depraved mean? The opposite of life, the opposite of growth, seeking shrinkage, seeking death, seeking self-harm. It becomes negative, it becomes self-destructive. We see this in a lot of the hedonistic behaviors that go on in the world today, where people are seeking sensation after sensation to the point of killing themselves. It's not that somebody takes recreational drugs, recreational alcohol, recreational sexuality. No, they do it to such intense extremes that they pervert themselves, they destroy themselves, they end up dead by the time they're 30, because there's such an imbalance of energies there. This is what we call the dark side, or this using the foundations for evil. They are literally under a possession of something that they're so desperate to try to attract that the more and more and more it caves in on them, crashes down. And you see this, if the people don't have the physically dead, then usually they are psychologically dead. Look at the people who follow this lifestyle. If they're big people in the public eye, we always hear about them being in drug problems, alcohol problems, all kinds of abuse situations and the like. On and on and on it goes, simply because people get possessed by, literally in their minds, some type of imbalance which completely takes them in, and they're literally out of control, and they know it. And it's because they're out of control that literally their life force energy inverts and turns from wanting to grow to wanting to shrink, and they become self-destructive. And it explains all the psychology of it. And what do we do about it? Well, let's read on. Maybe we can find an answer. Let's now discuss the order, what we could call the order of the human beings, and the order of nourishment. What is nourishment? Not just the food they eat, not a hamburger or a pizza, psychic nourishment, energetic nourishment. All real mazon, as we call it in Hebrew, is nourishment of your soul. And you might think this is psychology and self-help talk, but it's far more than that. This isn't just about making you feel good. This is about energetic balances in the reality of our universe. Go and study science. Go and study, electrician stuff, electronics, how to balance out the current, running through the wires in your house and stuff like that. You got to know what the heck you're doing, or you get zapped. If you want to know how to be physically healthy, you got to know how to balance things, especially if you go into the Oriental medicine point of view. They talk about balancing the chi within you. What do we call that chi again in Hebrew? Oh, that's right, nefesh. The same thing we're talking about right here. Everything is energy. And if you understand the physics, the physical physics of energy, the physical physics of energy for the world out there are the same as the movement of the energy within us. We talked about the riv'it of the dam, the chi flow within. Everything revolves around the same order here. And when we disconnect the mind from the natural order, that's when we go off into la la land, as you can call it, and all people get disconnected and all kinds of weirdo stuff starts to happen. So ultimately, by understanding the proper order of nourishment and balance and harmony, we can find what we're trying to find in life. Right? I don't know if everybody's, trying to find some, intense happiness in life. It's not like, you want to be high like from drugs every day. No, you want to be at peace. You just want to be calm, normal, natural life. Well, how do you find the calm, normal, natural life? Getting rid of that which is not calm, getting rid of that which is abnormal for you, getting rid of that which is unnatural, and getting people back to a normal, down-to-earth life, it's very hard. One of the great things I so much loved about living in the mountains of Tennessee was that the people who were there, even though they were not Jewish, were the most normal, down-to-earth, non-pretentious people. We always got along so well because everybody was just normal, cool people. That's the best way to be, in my opinion. But what can I say? We all have to go and move with the flow. Hine, Guf ha'adam ha'chomeri, the physical body, is divided up into the four physical forms, as we know. These are the four foundations. Arma, again, fire, air, water, physical, all right, earth. And we have the four biles, which we've already disproved scientifically, but we mentioned them anyway. The ikaram, and he says that they all correspond again to the four organs, the lung, the liver, gallbladder, and spleen. Again, Rabbi Hayim is bringing down the old classic understanding of medicine. Today we might call it folk medicine. But if you look at, for example, the medical systems that come out of modern China, traditional Chinese medicine, they've been doing this stuff for as long as we've been having our Torah. And even though I think that they've modernized some and they understand things better than certainly they did 2,000-3,000 years ago, they're still able to use the old system and know exactly how it works in an energetic way. Well, that's pretty cool. Because again, when you study the old systems and recognize their validity, and you can apply that validity to a modern application, I think you have the best of all worlds. I'm not one for believing in fantasy make-believe stuff that cannot be proven, but indeed the traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine coming out of India, these things have been subject to modern testing by the scientists in those countries. And I've seen some of the research coming out and it's very impressive. So in my opinion, at least, it's definitely worth an investment of interest and pursuit of knowledge. But moving right along. All of these things, mitpashetim lekol haguf, all of these energy forces that emanate from the different organs of the body, they influence everything in the body. And in the body is that what you call the animal soul. Real briefly, the animal soul is that influence which comes upon us from physical functions of the body. The body, aside from the mind, has a life of its own, if you will, and it has its own life force energy, the chi. It flows through it and everything else. It's independent of the mind, the brain, and therefore is subject to its own laws and stuff. And it has its own energy, it has its own desires and everything else. So, for example, the physical body enjoys pleasures. Does the mind actually enjoy pleasures? No, the body does. This led to a dichotomy in the old Greek philosophy between the mind and the body, where in which they interpreted the mind as being all pure and good, and the body being all bad and evil. And that pretty much was something adopted in Western religions, where everything physical is considered bad and evil, and everything, in quote, mental or spiritual is considered good and holy. That's not an original Torah concept. Torah concept, we consider everything to be good and holy within a context. Anything can be bad within a context. Eating is good. Being wealthy is good. All the types of things can be good if used properly, balanced, natural, and all the rest. But that requires a higher level of consciousness, which is in conflict with the natural order called the Nefesh Behemit. Perusha inyan, ki lo kol ha'olam ha'asiyah b'shaveh. Right? Not everything is in the same. Right? Now, heaven and the earth, they're not balanced equal, either. Hine ha'aretz yesh ba arba halakim arma v'kulam domem. Now, at one level, we have, as you know, at the level of what we call the earth, the most physical. We have the four elements at the inanimate level. So literally, what is the inanimate level? All right, physical fire, physical air, physical water, physical earth. This domem, all right, guf v'nefesh de domem mikayem otam. So they exist within the physical body. The physical body, which is incorporated and made up of physical elements, has a consciousness, a nefesh of its own, meaning a desire, an intent, and a purpose. But above this, deeper than this, higher than this, hu gufat somach kolel ma'arba mitocho nefesh somachat. There's a higher level, other than just the inanimate, and that's what we call the vegetative level. Yeah, plants, little trees and plants, they also have consciousness. They are made up of their own four elements, and they are sentient beings. Did you know that? Go online, go to like channels of Google, on YouTube and this stuff, and see how plants, they not only respond to sunlight, they can respond to music. They can respond to human emotions. Now, I've never actually researched the validity of certain tests, but I've seen tests where people have, made experiments with plants, where you had two plants, one of which people like yelled at, and the other which they spoke nicely to, and the plant supposedly that spoke nicely to responded positively. Well, I've never seen the research to validate whether that test is true or not, but I have seen tests where in which certain types of music are played to plants. Certain types of music make the plants prosper and grow. Other types of music make them wither and die. So you want to know what kind of music you should listen to? Play it to your plants. Play it to your flowers. See if it keeps them up or down. I think that's a real good litmus test to see how certain types of sound influence and interact at the natural level. Above this level, you have the physical body of animals. Bali Chai, again, made up of its four levels. And within it is the actual and authentic Nefesh Behemit, animal soul. Now, at this level, it includes within it all the others. So the inanimate level of soul has the inanimate level of soul. The vegetable level of soul has the inanimate and the vegetable. The animal has both the inanimate and the vegetable, and itself, the animal level, has all three. So we're talking about greater or deeper stratas or levels of consciousness. Nimtza, we find a domem, hu guf nefesh domem. The domem is both the body and the soul at that level. The tzomach, yesh bo halak nefesh guf v'nefesh shel domem. The vegetable level has within it both body and soul of that domem or inanimate level, and above it has its own level, a body and a soul at the vegetable level. Remember what a soul is: consciousness. And then again, you have the vegetable level. It is greater than just the inanimate level. And the domem naaseh somach. And the domem, the inanimate, rises up, elevates. Same with animals. It has both a body and a soul, from both the inanimate level and the vegetable level, and added to that as a body and a soul from the animal level. And therefore, the body of the inanimate and the vegetable is nourished thereby. Meaning, so for example, what do animals eat? Well, they'll eat inanimate from like water. They'll eat vegetables and the like. Also, human beings have within us the inanimate, we have the vegetable, and we also have the animal, body and soul. And again, that which we have above them is what's called the Nefesh Behemit. We have a level of consciousness which is one step higher than the animal. But continue, Nimsa, we find that the essence of the reality of the human being is this Nefesh Behemit Hamidaberet, as it's written in the Hayim, etc., and so on. Now, what that means here, let me just read this here. The animal soul, Asher Yesh Be'adam, the animal soul that exists within the human being, Chotzava Memakom, emanates from the place, Shenachtzava Nefesh Behemit, that emanates from the exact same place as the animal soul, which is that of animals, like wild animals and birds and fish. Rather, that it's Penimit Umubchar Shebe Nefesh Behemit. Rather, it's the most inner and higher form of this animal soul. So, your average human being, well, maybe secular science is in a way right when they say we are nothing more than just a smart animal. When people do not develop the higher levels of human consciousness, which is again awareness, sensitivity, compassion, and discipline and control, that's really what we humans have that animals don't, then essentially we are no different from them. I'll give an example. For those of you who don't know, I have German Shepherds here in the house. I have 3 of them. And at this time, the time of our speaking here, our female is in heat. And our male is absolutely insane trying to get to her. Now, can I speak to him rationally? Can I tell him, we're not going to have a pregnancy at this time, so we're not going to couple you, take it easy? My animal does not understand that kind of consciousness. All he understands is, if you will, the call of nature. But how many of us human beings understand the higher calling of things? When I say to you, you got to be disciplined, you can't do things like this, to which I get a response, but I want to. Right? I recently knew a young child who was totally misbehaving all the time. And I tried to speak to the child. I said, there are things that you have to do. And the child said, I don't want to. To which I responded, it doesn't matter what you want or don't want. It's something that has to be done. To which the child again responded, but I don't want to. It was focused only on its individual desires. Now, granted, this is a young child. I expect more from a young child. But that is what we would call animal consciousness. Nefesh Behemit. Some today might call it selfishness. Some might call it narcissistic personality. It's the same. It's this Nefesh Behemit, focused on oneself, very similar to an animal. Just like my dog Texie, all right? My dog Texie, a lovely animal. He has deep emotions. He's very intelligent. I can actually speak to him full sentences, and I know he understands because he listens to what I say, right? He's got a brain. He's very smart. But I don't think I can actually reason with him and cultivate within him a sense of responsibility or discipline. How many of us people today would I say the same thing about? Think about this. We want to talk about human consciousness as opposed to animal consciousness. Animal consciousness is, like I spoke about moments ago, surrendering to archetype, influence, without the semblance of the human mind taking control and discipline. This has always been the cause and the purpose of Torah. The cause and purpose of Torah is to get people to think higher. Throughout the Torah, we're always taught to remember things. Remember this, remember that. Remember the Exodus of Egypt. Remember creation. We're trying to understand, like we said earlier about the Klipah Nogah, having the good and the bad side, one coming from a body of light one coming from a body of, in quote, flesh. Well, this is the big secret. That which we call our human soul, the Adamic level of soul, is actually not indigenous to this earth or to our physical bodies. That's why it meant in Genesis where it said God breathed into us the Ruach Hayim, the spirit of life. That is this higher level of soul. And it interacts with the human animal Behemit and elevates it. Or not, depending on the individual. And this is where we separate, if you will, between the holy and the profane. Because the Torah was given to us as instruction. Just like we study in the Kabbalah and the Otzrot Hayim series, we speak about the Mahadash, the power of the new light which emanated from the forehead of Adam Kadmon. How does it bring about order? By creating a simplistic, natural order and way, Torah, and which all the complexities of the fallen kings have to just follow. And that's discipline. And that's a dirty word with some people. They don't like being told what to do. They want to do it. They want to do their way and darn with anything else. What can I say? They'll be, again, subject to that which we call, I guess, karma. What you sow is what you reap. What you put in is what you get out. If that's the way you want to live it, go for it. See where it leads you. Well, we're not so judgmental as many others. We're not going to condemn you to hell forever and ever. Why? Because one thing we know in our Torah traditions, right? No matter how long it takes, you'll get it right. Right? It might take you 1,000,000 reincarnations. You might have to go through hell a whole bunch of different times, but eventually you'll get it right. God is patient, Baruch Hashem. So you know what? Do whatever you want. You want to, in quote, proverbially burn in hell or do stupid things, mess up and screw up your life. Don't worry, you'll get a next life. You might have to fill a lot of karma. You might have to go through a lot of bad stuff. I remember speaking with my Rabbanit when we were discussing the story of Yosef and his brothers. And we said, my gosh, he commented to me, he says, look what happened to them. And I said, yeah, look what happened. Joseph forgave them. Joseph never had a problem with them. But what they did haunted them every day for the rest of their lives. When they stood in front of Tzafnat Paneach in Egypt, they knew what they were going through is because what they did to Joseph. When later Yaakov dies, the first thing that's on their minds is Joseph's going to kill us now. And even though Joseph forgave them, heaven couldn't. Karma dictated. And they came back to in reincarnation and all the terrible things that happened to them, etc. So it's a big deal. This is a big deal with what we do and how we do it. And this whole war between the Nefesh Behemit and the Nefesh human. We're going to get to that in just a minute here. All right. He says, "V'lechen hi midabaret v'kesh nuzan ve'ochel mitchaber v'noseh po nefesh behemit memachle hadomem kigon ma'im melech." When you eat, you physically eat. You eat things like water. You drink things like water. You eat things like salt, and then you have all these different things which, again, you absorb and you bring up. I'm going to try to speed through some of the boring stuff here, where in which he pretty much is saying, when we eat things, we're supposed to elevate them, okay? When we drink water, we're not really going down in consciousness because water doesn't really have that much an influence on consciousness. When we eat vegetables, it has an influence on consciousness. When we eat meat, it has a far more important power on consciousness. And that's why, for example, he even brings down here the whole point of sacrifices and things like that. And again, I'm paraphrasing because I see we're running a little bit short on time. I want to start taking questions in a few minutes. Well, eating animal flesh has always been problematic. Why? Because, like it says right in the Bible, the nefesh, the life force energy of the animal, is in the meat. And if you are on a level of consciousness where you can elevate that, then you're doing a great thing. You're bringing the order and the proper elevation. But if you are an undisciplined soul, then that animal force that's in the meat draws you down to the animal level. And this is why you'll find the words of our sages that says, Ama aretz asur le'echol besar, that a person who is, shall we say, not disciplined, it's forbidden for them to eat meat. And don't get extreme and weird with me on this, please. Just saying an opinion, okay? Because they recognize the influence of the animal soul. Now, one of the ways in kashrut laws is that when we perform the shahita, the kavanah of the mind of the slaughterer, the shohet, has to be in such a way that not only is he trying to neutralize the life as instantly as he can so the animal doesn't feel any pain, which doesn't cause any trauma, which therefore could create negativity, which would imbue all of its meat. His energy of his intent at the time is supposed to be kadosh, so he's elevating the animal soul up at the time. I know people who do not eat meat today simply because they don't trust the shahatim, the people who are doing the slaughtering, of having the proper mindset. And because they don't have the proper human mindset, when they're slaughtering the meat, they're not elevating the animal soul. So even though ritually the animal is glatt kosher by the slaughter, the energy in it is still imbalanced. And they refuse, those who are energy sensitive. So for those who want to be in some which way, vegetarian, there is some kind of force, or if you will, a validation of that. But anyway, getting back to our understanding here of the nature of these influences and these powers, right? I skipped a whole bunch of things here to just sum it up. So anyway, we have the four foundational elements. They give rise to the four foundations, which influence the body of the person. This is all physical. And upon all of these now is something else. And this is what we call the garment, which comes from the world of Asiya itself. All right? And this is still the realm of Klipot. Now, techila, let me explain, all right? Just as we have the human animalistic tendencies towards this physical world and the physical things of this physical world, which makes our consciousness no different from the animal world. When we wake up, human consciousness. Now you're thinking like a human. What's the first element of that? We spoke about this. This is that Klipat Nogah. The Klipat Nogah symbolized kind of like, not exactly, but kind of like the tree of knowledge, good and evil in the Garden of Eden. Has both a good and a bad side. It depends. This Klipat Nogah is that energy, call it maybe the chi, the life force energy. And when we draw down that energy from what we call the ethereal or the spiritual, what do we do with it? You can draw it into a negative expression, or the dark side or the evil side of this Klipat Nogah. That's the closest thing, the first thing. When Rabbi Hayim speaks about the order of the worlds in Tzaddik Kedusha, one of the courses we have available on our Kosher Torah School, he speaks of the closest realm in the in-quote spiritual is this world of Klipot, in which we're taking the spiritual energy, which, for lack of a better word, I call it spiritual. I don't know what else to call it. That imbues, it's above the animalistic level. And we take it and we pervert it. We take it and we twist and turn it into something negative, meaning not applicable to a higher ascent of consciousness. And we take our greater human thinking processes and we use them in twisted, perverted ways. If you look around the world today, see all kinds of weirdo, crazy stuff going on in the secular world. One weirdo, crazy stuff more than another. You have the cults and and all the weirdo groups out there. Everybody's doing one more weirdo thing than the other. And you ask, well, what's going on in their minds to make them think like this? And the answer is that they're taking this life force energy of this human side of us, and they're pushing it down. That's called the Klipat Nogah de Ra, the Klipat Nogah of evil, as opposed to allowing it to transform to rise up above. And this is why Rabbi Hayim states here, Haben zehetev say the Erul ha'madrigot. Understand well here the order of these levels. Ve'az miklipat nogah tov vera. This is where this klipat nogah, good and evil, is. You have the guf, the shemaim, the asiyah. You have the body, like the heavens of the Asiatic level. It is drawn forth and it is cloaked within the animal soul. All right, betoch Nefesh Behemit shabo. Betoch klipat nogah zo. Now, within this klipat nogah, we have two forces. That which you call the good inclination and the evil inclination. Sham gam kemit labesh harkach pnimut rakiya the asiya v'nefesh shelhem. And within it also is the inner essence of this. He calls here this heaven called asiya, which is its soul. And this is called the nefesh, the human soul, and the soul of the ofanim. Okay, now here's where you have to understand. That level, which is the higher level of human consciousness, it's the human soul or the ofanim. Remember the ofanim from Ezekiel's chariot? That is the part of us that connects to, if you will, the heavenly source. That part which is not indigenous to this earth. It connects to the physical body. It connects to the conscious cerebral brain. And yet, it is in this place where in which we have this good and evil, this Yetzer HaTov and Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, which draws us to all this bad stuff, whether it's abusive in eating, abusive in all the different things that we say, yeah, I know. And eventually these things kill us. Or it brings us to the good side, where we're disciplined, we're focused, we do what we need to do. All right? It reminds me of the words that came into my head right now, like the parent saying to the child, eat your vegetables, kind of thing. All right? That's very important, actually. Believe it or not, you might think a silly thing like eating vegetables is silly, but no, it's not. Proper eating is very, very important. And in all due respect, who doesn't like a nice sugary treat, something snack and everything else? But if it comes to where it's harmful to your body, no. Now, we don't believe in extremism. Sometimes every now and then a little bit of sweets is something not bad, but discipline. And that's what people lack. Everybody needs to find that balance to what is right and good for the individual. This is that war between the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. And in later Zoharic word, this is actually given an example or an expression where in which the Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination draws you down to the animalistic forces, is associated with and called by the name of the angel Samael, where in which the Yetzer HaTov is said to be associated with and called by the name of the archangel Metatron. Metatron is what draws you up. Samael is what draws you down. Now, here's the interesting point. There's no war going on. Trying to the Otzar Kabbalah, there's two sides of the same coin. And when we study in the Torah tradition, we recognize that Samael is actually a faithful servant of God. God allows the existence of all these natural elements and forces, knowing that they draw us down, with the intent that we learn to mature, grow up, and become spiritual adults to overcome these childlike levels of consciousness. Reminds me of Arthur C. Clarke's famous novel, Childhood's End. Very important. Like I said, doesn't matter how long it takes, a million years, whatever, we will learn. We will overcome. We will grow. So on that note here, you know what? I see we're really running short on time. Ofanim consciousness. Is this our Magid level? Rachel is asking. No, it's not actually. The Ofanim level of consciousness is the first level of spiritual awareness, which puts you in tune with the natural order. Using the Chinese tradition, it would be walking with the Tao, what we would call being simple and pure before Hashem, knowing the natural order of the way of life and living it, not succumbing to, not surrendering to, not being influenced by the archetypes, which are collective mind control types of influence. Just popped into my mind now, one of the most relevant examples recently, Nazi Germany. If you remember Germany was an intelligent, rational, smart nation. But because of the emotional turmoil of what happened in the aftermath of World War I, An entire nation of otherwise intelligent people became subject to influences which literally brainwashed a nation. And literally, they became subject to a collective psychosis, which led them to the most depraved behaviors, not just towards Jews, but towards almost everybody else. Yeah, 20 million people, from what I understand, died in the concentration camps. Only 6 million were Jews. Don't forget everybody else. So understand, this is the nature of the archetype. When you open yourself up to these types of things, negativity, oh, like a spiral will take you down from one to the next, to the next, to the next, boom, 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 and all human consciousness is gone. Bad news. That's why, again, discipline, first step, contact with the Ophanim level of consciousness, walking the natural way, and coming in balance with all these things. All right, let's see. Question. So how does a person take practical steps to overcome those archetypes that are damaging the body and the soul? Answer, step one, become aware of them. The first step of overcoming a trap is to know of its existence. If you don't think that these things can hurt you, and yeah, I can do whatever I want, battle's lost. You have to recognize that as a human being, you have limitations. As a human being, you can fall. If the brothers of Joseph could fall, they were righteous, holy men, you can fall too. If the entire generation that came forth out of Egypt could fall after seeing the miracles, the parting of the Red Sea, the giving of the Torah, they fell, you can fall. If you become subject, you allow yourself, your mind, to be subject to forces that influence you as opposed to you being able to influence them. That is the great problem here. So anyway, that's pretty much the nature of getting in touch with the spirit of the Ophanim, to get in touch then with this Klipah Nogah, the control of the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, and taking control. This is what we're talking about here. And this is how the Nefesh, actually the human soul, it's called like the human soul within the animal soul, all right? And one thing, again, nourishes and sustains off the other. So anyway, we're going to conclude that right here, I guess. And hopefully I've given you enough to think about. Again, what Reb Hayim here is talking about in his Kabbalah speak is very, very importantly relevant to us on a day-to-day basis. If we want to literally expand human consciousness, become aware of the animalistic tendencies within ourselves, the childlike tendencies within ourselves, and to learn to control them. Again, that's that dirty, dirty word which no one likes to hear, discipline. All right, you want to learn about discipline? My Rabbanit has turned me on to one of the, what are they called, empowerment speakers. His name is Jocko Willick, I think he is. He's got a YouTube channel, all kinds of really positive, strong, tough stuff. He's a good old, U.S. Navy SEAL, and very, very powerful influence. So it's not religious. Yeah, some discipline is all religion. And it doesn't matter what form or what package it comes in, truth is what works. So check out that type of stuff, Be'ezat Hashem. It should be of influence. So I got a question here from Adam. Should a person new to discipline become vegetarian until discipline is increased? No, not necessarily. If you find that eating meat is harmful to you, now don't go by what you feel. You got to know there's something real. Most people today eat meat because it's a natural part of our diet. If and when you have a problem with real, physical stuff and stuff like that, and you can't get away from certain types of things that are drawing you in physically, yeah, maybe you want to change your diet, a little less of the animal protein, more to the vegetable. But hopefully that shouldn't be necessary. Hopefully you should be able to take discipline and control. And again, the best psychology isn't done with some external therapist. It's done with your internal therapist, taking, control of yourself. Alrighty, guys, we're really short, so I'm gonna end it on that note. I want to thank you all for joining me for our class and your support of our Kosher Torah School. Check out our courses that we have online. Plenty of stuff. If you want to join in our regular weekly courses, become a member. We just started a new series just today in Sefer Emek HaMelech in the gates of Beriah. We got other Etz Chaim classes, Otzrot Chaim classes, Kabbalistic Torah portions, whole bunch of good fun stuff for you, all for the asking. Thank you again for joining me. We'll see you all, God bless, in our next class. Kol Tuv, Shalom.